A team of workers is leaving a coal mine. A young miner asks his boss and father, Shookum, to be lenient with their colleague who has violated safety regulations. Suddenly, boy starts screaming, and when his father turns around, he sees something grabbing the boy and dragging him toward the mine entrance. Shookum tries to save his son, but the creature wounds him in the shoulder, paralyzing him. Then the man starts screaming, unable to help his son, who disappears into the darkness. Eventually, the mine is closed as a fire breaks out inside, which is predicted to burn for several decades. The entire area is declared an environmental disaster zone. 33 people have died, and 162 have gone missing in the past few years. One day, a guide named Ariane receives an order from a team of geological scientists who want to examine the mine. She takes the men to the right place. Darren, Sean, Terry, and Jamie have different attitudes toward her role. Some doubt her professionalism, while others think she's too serious. But they all share the same question. How does she know where to go if there are no signs on the road? The girl behaves very discreetly and refuses to discuss her previous clients, which earns her the respect of the group. Soon they enter a small village and stop at a store. Ariane goes inside to buy supplies and ask for directions to the same place. The shopkeeper says that he has never heard of a town by that name that burned down in the 70s. Then she reminds him that it is still marked on the 1972 map, and then disappears. When Ariane insists, the man advises them to go back the way they came and not to come back. Ariane leaves the store, and the owner immediately calls someone named Dale and warns that there is a problem. The girl doesn't tell her customers anything and advises them to take their seats. When their car starts moving, another car immediately starts following them. The men don't like this, and they start arguing, deciding whether to turn back. Ariane organizes a real race, trying to break away from the pursuers. She manages to escape and memorizes the place where their car turned into the forest. Ariane drives her car to that spot and finds a dirt road. As they drive along, the team sees an electric fence blocking the road. There are signs warning about the danger around it, which is puzzling because it is unclear what can be guarded in the middle of the forest. However, this does not stop anyone. While the men are thinking about how to get over the fence, Ariane uses a rope to climb a tall tree and jumps to the other side. The men are forced to follow her. After getting over the fence, the group heads down the road and soon comes to the river, where they decide to take a break. Sean explains that they need to be wary of sinkholes, which form when the ground collapses in an underground cavity. People, animals, cars, and sometimes even entire houses fall into these sinkholes. They often occur when a coal seam burns out underground, and it is quite possible that this is exactly what happened here. Although nothing is known for sure yet, except that the mining town suddenly disappeared. However, Sean is not sure that it was a coal mine. He suggests that it could have been a rare earth metal deposit, or even an analog of the place where miners decided to drill the world's deepest mine. At a depth of 12 kilometers, they came across a void, and when scientists recorded the sounds coming from there, it was terrifying because it seemed that people were screaming there, going through hellish torments. Darren, however, ridicules these theories, explaining that it is usually just the echo of tectonic plate friction, which occurs wherever the integrity of the soil is disturbed by mines. Sean reminds him that this is where the American government wanted to drill a similar ultra-deep mine, and then people just disappeared. An argument breaks out between the two, with Sean pointing out that myths don't just appear out of thin air, but Darren is convinced that it was just an environmental disaster. Meanwhile, locals discover a break in the electric fence and try to figure out who did it and when. The wires are not cut, but torn, which means that humans are unlikely to have anything to do with it. People are looking at the mines in the ground, covered with metal grates. One of the men finds a small hole, and leaning into it, receives a severe blow to the head. Meanwhile, the rest of the group of scientists go to sleep in their tents. Darren says that Ariane was recommended to him by an acquaintance whom she accompanied on an expedition to Tanzania. Despite her difficult personality, the girl is a true professional and very brave. Meanwhile, the leader of the locals, Shookum, orders one of his men, Dale, to find those who have entered the territory and get rid of them at any cost. At the geologist's camp, Darren tells Ariane that all his friends are professionals. Terry is an excellent technician, Sean is a respected geologist, and Jamie is a security guard. This alarms Ariane, who doesn't understand why the scientists need to be protected from, and she wonders what exactly they hope to find here. Darren admits that there is unusual coal in this place, anthracite of ultra-high quality, and if they manage to take samples and understand why it burns, perhaps in the future people will be able to prevent such fires. Ariane is surprised, but Darren reminds her that about 1,000 people disappeared here, and these things don't just happen. In the morning, the group moves on, marveling at the modern warning systems installed on the territory. In addition, isolated paths in the ground are often found. Soon, the men come to abandoned buildings, but then Ariane hears the sound of a motor and orders the men to hide. They manage to disappear from the sight of Dale, who is looking for them. After waiting for the car to drive away, the scientists move on. Suddenly, hot jets burst out of the ground. People see the houses of the same disappeared town. The group examines them, surprised that the buildings have survived because they were built more than 100 years ago. They enter an old store where everything inside is still in place, as if the inhabitants had simply evaporated or quickly left the house. After looking around the building, they go out the other side and find themselves on the edge of a huge place. Despite the joy of the discovery, they are surprised to find a gap covered by a makeshift roof. Tense as they are, they break through the fence and lower the sensors into the dip to map the tunnels beneath it and analyze the air composition in the mine. Judging by the data, what they were looking for is inside. Suddenly, Darren hears a loud sound in his headphones, like a scream. Terry takes the headphones away and listens, not realizing that he has one foot in the hinge that holds the device inside the sinkhole. The next moment, someone pulls the rope hard, and the man is pulled into the sinkhole. Everything happens very quickly, and people can only hear him screaming for help, not realizing what has happened. Ariane and Jamie immediately go down after him to try to find Terry, but no matter how much they search, they can't find him. At this time, Dale drives up to the failure and becomes furious when he sees that they have opened the passage cover. He threatens them with a gun and demands that they close it immediately. Despite the fact that there were people below, he tries to cut the ropes and close the lid. Fearing for his friends' lives, Sean knocks him out. When Ariane returns, she reports that Terry is lost. The gas level is off the charts, and there are monsters in the tunnels. The group flees to the forest in Dale's car. Sean and Darren argue again, causing the car to lose control and lose a wheel. They have to walk. Meanwhile, Dale regains consciousness and informs the locals that a breach has formed in his area. At this point, an alarm goes off, scaring the scientists. Ariane demands that they obey her and leads the group. Suddenly, they are attacked by monsters, and they run away in a panic, losing Sean. Eventually, they come to the road where Darren's car is traveling. Ariane and Jamie are rescued by a group of locals led by Shookum, who used to own the mines. He tells them that the mines are home to monsters, which are the real reason for the town's disappearance. The surviving townspeople stayed here to keep these creatures at bay, and he considers the place itself to be purgatory. Ariane is called upon to go back with two locals to show them the vortex they opened and try to find Terry and Sean. Darren and Jamie decide to accompany her. As soon as they get outside, a message comes in from an observer. The monsters have broken through to the surface, and there are a lot of them. Elroy sacrifices himself to distract the monsters and give his friends a chance to get to the sinkhole and close it, while the rest of the group runs to an underground shelter. However, it turns out that the monsters have already gotten inside. It's impossible to hide from them, because their hearing is much sharper than human hearing, and even the slightest noise gives people away. A girl named Shelby also decides to distract the monsters, ordering Ariane and the men to run away and not to fall into the monsters' clutches. As expected, the scientists run away, but they are caught up. Jaime tries to kill the monsters with a grenade, but one of the creatures attacks him and knocks the grenade out of his hands. An explosion occurs, and the man is killed. Darren and Ariane continue their journey alone. Exhausted, the boy confesses to Ariane that this expedition was not organized to map the area, as he had assured her. He was paid by a coal company that needed a rare mineral from the caves, and his friends died because of his greed. Ariane then confesses that during her last trip, her climbing partner hung from a rope, and she was unable to lift him up, so she cut the rope to avoid dying with him. But this time she promises to get Darren out. Darren refuses to go any further, and Ariane leaves alone, promising to return with help. Meanwhile, Shutman's team shoots the monsters that have broken out to the surface. Ariane hears the gunshots, follows the sound, and reaches the surface, but is grabbed by one of the monsters, which paralyzes her with poison. Later, she regains consciousness on a raft, which is controlled by one of the creatures. When they reach the lair, she meets Darren and Sean, who have also been captured. Sean explains that these creatures are a species that reproduces and colonizes territories, like ants or bees, but they are feeding it to the queen, a bloated, immobile creature with teeth. The others also try to feed the queen, but Ariane uses the grenade Darren gave her to kill her. They run away and start climbing up the rope. However, one of the creatures attacks Darren. Ariane gives him a knife so that he can defend himself, but realizing that it is poisoned, Darren cuts the rope, saving Ariane at the cost of his own life. The locals arrive, and one of them wants to cut the rope to condemn Ariane to certain death, but Shutman stops him and helps the girl escape. The locals use flamethrowers and rifles to drive the monsters back into the tunnels, and Shutman takes Ariane behind a fence. He tells her about the death of his son and asks her to help him drive the monsters underground, but the girl does not believe that humans can defeat them and walks away. However, she returns a minute later, determined to fight. If you have watched the video so far, you should know that I am happy to have viewers like you. Thank you for watching to the end. Subscribe to the channel and follow the news.